I've never liked late-night jobs, but desperation can push anyone into dark corners they'd rather avoid. My name is Ethan, and I'm just a college kid, constantly broke, trying to scrape together enough cash to survive another semester. I never imagined one desperate decision could turn my life into a nightmare. It was just past 10 p.m. when my phone buzzed. A strange notification popped up, a job from a gig app called Quicksend. I'd used it once or twice before for small deliveries, but never this late. Tonight's job was different, a single delivery. A mysterious package to be dropped off at Pinewood Motel Room 9 by midnight. $300 cash on delivery. The money was tempting, but Pinewood Motel had a reputation. Abandoned, creepy, and isolated. It was the last place anyone in Rosefield wanted to go after dark. Still, my wallet was empty, and my stomach growled in protest. I swallowed my fears and accepted the job. My first stop was a rundown 24-hour convenience store on the outskirts of town. I stepped inside to pick up the package. The store was empty, bathed in flickering fluorescent lights. Sam, the clerk behind the counter, handed me a heavy, poorly wrapped parcel. He didn't make eye contact. He didn't even speak. Just slid it toward me, mumbling, "Room 9. No questions." A chill ran down my spine, but I nodded anyway. Something was clearly wrong, but $300 spoke louder than fear. I took the package and left, trying to ignore the growing dread in my stomach. As I drove through the night, Pinewood Motel came into view, barely illuminated by my car's headlights. It stood like a rotting corpse at the edge of town. The neon sign was broken, flickering weakly in the darkness. Every window was shattered, every door boarded up, except Room 9, which I noticed uneasily was slightly ajar. I parked, grabbed the package, and stepped out. Gravel crunched beneath my feet, the silence pressing down like heavy fog. My heart raced as I approached the open door. It swung gently back and forth, creaking softly, as if beckoning me closer. Pushing open the door, I shone my phone's flashlight inside. What I saw froze me instantly. The entire room was covered in sheets of plastic, walls, floor, furniture. Beneath the plastic were stains, dark and dried, unmistakably blood. My pulse quickened. The air felt thick, filled with the scent of mildew and something else, something metallic. Suddenly I heard movement deeper within the darkness, a soft shuffle, followed by slow, deliberate footsteps. Panic surged through me. I quickly tossed the package onto the plastic-covered floor and stumbled backward toward the doorway. As soon as I stepped outside, my phone rang, an unknown number. I hesitated, then answered shakily. "Hello?" No words, just breathing, heavy, rasping, close. I hung up immediately, sprinted to my car, and sped away, never looking back. That night, sleep never came. My mind replayed the scene endlessly, the plastic sheets, the blood, the unseen presence. Who had I delivered that package to? Or better yet, what had I delivered? The next morning, I turned on the news. My blood ran cold as the reporter mentioned Pinewood Motel. Local police have discovered evidence of recent criminal activity at Pinewood Motel. Suspicious packages, possible gang involvement. Anyone with information should come forward immediately. Guilt hit me like a punch. I had to do something, so I made an anonymous call from a payphone informing the police about Room 9 and the package. Relief washed over me. I thought it was over. But the following day, another news report made my heart stop again. Police followed up on a tip, but found no package in Room 9. Authorities suspect interference from whoever is responsible. Residents are urged to stay alert. The words echoed in my head. Someone had moved the package, someone who knew I'd called the police. My breathing grew shallow as fear gripped me again. Then my phone buzzed once more, another unknown number. A text message flashed across my screen. "You shouldn't have called them." My blood ran cold. They knew my name. They knew how to reach me. I felt trapped, helpless, watched. Days passed and sleep became impossible. Every noise startled me. Every shadow felt threatening. I was constantly checking my windows, expecting someone lurking outside. Paranoia consumed me, making me doubt every friendly face in town. Another message arrived late one evening, chilling my blood even further. We have another package, same payout. Pinewood Motel, room 9, midnight. Don't disappoint us again. I stared at the message, my heart racing. Could I risk refusing them? Another buzz followed quickly, this time a photo. It was my dorm building, my window circled in red. They knew exactly where I lived. I had no choice. Midnight arrived. I picked up the second package from the same convenience store. Sam again, avoiding my gaze. This package was heavier, colder. The silence felt oppressive. Returning to Pinewood Motel felt like walking back into a nightmare. Room 9's door was wide open this time. Plastic rustled inside, stirred by a phantom breeze. My chest tightened painfully. Everything in me screamed to run, but the threat hung heavily over my head. Taking slow, cautious steps, I entered again. My flashlight trembled as I placed the package down quickly, avoiding looking deeper into the darkness. But this time, something moved at the edge of my vision. A shadow shifting beneath the plastic sheets. My heart nearly stopped. "Who's there?" I whispered, voice cracking. Only silence, punctuated by my rapid breathing. Then, the rustling sound came again, closer now. Something brushed my arm. I screamed and bolted from the room, racing to my car. I barely started the engine when headlights flooded my rearview mirror. A black van pulled up silently, engine idling, headlights glaring menacingly at me. My phone vibrated again, and I knew without looking who it was. The screen lit up ominously. "We know who you are, Ethan. We'll see you soon." Terror flooded through me. They knew everything. My name, where I lived, who I was. Days have passed since then, but peace never came. Every night I sit awake, staring at my window, wondering when they'll come for me. And tonight, just moments before telling you this story, I received one final text. Midnight. Pinewood Motel, room 9. This time, you'll stay. I think they're already here, and now I hear footsteps outside my door. I was barely making rent, juggling college tuition, bills, and trying to keep my old Honda running. That's why I stuck with my job delivering pizzas for Tony's Pizza, even when Tony pushed me to take the late-night shifts nobody else wanted. Usually I didn't mind the hours, but everything changed one cold October night when I got the call that would haunt me forever. It was close to midnight when the last order buzzed on my phone. Tony, my boss, barely looked up from counting cash. "Jake, delivery just came in, Oak Ridge out by Greenville." I groaned internally. Oak Ridge was notorious, an isolated area at the edge of Pine Creek Woods. Locals whispered stories about it, calling it haunted, dangerous. Kids at college joked about the disappearances and spooky rumors, but none of us believed them, until now. "Can't someone else do it?" I asked half-heartedly, knowing Tony would never budge. "You leaving money on the table?" Tony snapped, glaring. I sighed, grabbed the hot pizza box, and stepped into the chilly night. The drive was unsettlingly quiet. My headlights barely pierced the darkness as I turned onto a narrow, winding dirt road leading deep into the forest. Soon the sparse lights of Greenville vanished entirely. I was alone, swallowed by dense trees and an oppressive blackness that made me grip the wheel tighter. Finally, the GPS chimed and I slowed near a weather-beaten cabin, barely visible through a dense thicket. My headlights flickered over its grim, peeling paint. The windows were cracked, darkened like hollow eyes staring at me. No lights, no cars, nothing but the woods, pressing in from all sides. I parked, stepping carefully onto the uneven ground, pizza box clutched tightly. Approaching the porch steps, I paused, listening. Silence. The wind rustled through dry branches, a faint whispering that sent a chill crawling down my neck. I knocked firmly, the echo resonating louder than expected. Nothing stirred inside. After knocking again and getting no answer, I stepped back, my anxiety growing. I took out my phone, dialed the number provided. As I waited, heart pounding, a faint ringing drifted from somewhere behind the cabin, swallowed by the woods. My breath caught, The ringing continued, faint yet distinct. Someone was out there, close but hidden. I spun around, eyes straining into the pitch-black trees, but saw nothing. "Hello?" I called, voice cracking despite my attempt to sound confident. Silence greeted me, oppressive and thick. I quickly hung up. Uneasy, I backed toward my car, noticing every tiny sound. The rustle of leaves, a twig snapping deep in the woods. My fingers fumbled with the pizza box as paranoia crept in. I dropped the box on the porch steps and moved, quickly toward my car. Just as I reached for the handle, headlights flashed behind me, blindingly bright. A large, dark vehicle had appeared silently, blocking my exit. A door slammed. Footsteps crunched toward me, deliberate and steady. I squinted against the glare, shielding my eyes, feeling panic rise sharply. "Jake," a deep, unfamiliar voice called, softly from the shadow behind the headlights. "Yeah," I stammered, frozen with dread. How did he know my name? A tall figure stepped out, silhouetted ominously against the glare. He moved slowly, hands hidden inside his jacket. I couldn't see his face clearly, but something about his presence screamed danger. "Thanks for bringing it out," he said calmly, voice low, controlled, almost soothing, yet completely unnerving. He took another step forward. I felt my pulse. "Tracing?" "No problem," I managed, voice shaking. I left the pizza by the door. "You can just pay online." He chuckled darkly. "Nah, cash only tonight, come inside." Every nerve in my body screamed at me to run. "Look, just leave the money on the porch," I stammered, sliding into the driver's seat, heart hammering. "You sure about that, Jake?" He said calmly, stepping even closer, his boots crunching gravel. "Might be rude not to come in." I slammed my door shut, locking it just as his shadow fell over my window. His fingers brushed the glass lightly, trailing along it as he bent down, face still obscured by darkness. "You're smarter than you look," he whispered. I slammed the gas pedal, tires spinning dirt and gravel as the car lurched backward. The man stepped back calmly, unmoving, as if he expected me to flee. As I sped down the road, heart thundering, I caught glimpses of several shadowy figures emerging from the woods behind him, standing silently, watching me disappear. I drove faster, shaking, uncontrollably until I reached the highway. Only then did I stop, breathing ragged, fumbling for my phone. I dialed the police, words tumbling out chaotically. Within half an hour, flashing lights arrived at Tony's Pizza, where I'd parked in desperation, unable to face the rest of the drive home alone. Two officers listened quietly, exchanging wary glances as I described the cabin, the man, and his chilling insistence I come inside. Officer Davis, the older one, finally spoke up. "That place has been abandoned for years. Property owner went missing a couple months back," he said grimly. "What?" My throat felt tight, pulse racing anew. "Then who called in the delivery?" The officers exchanged another look. "We'll check it out. You did the right thing, leaving quickly." Days later, the news hit the local headlines. Officers discovered evidence that the Oak Ridge cabin had recently been used for criminal activities linked to multiple disappearances in the area. The man I'd encountered was never found, vanishing as silently as he appeared, leaving only a set of tire tracks heading deeper into the woods. I quit the delivery job immediately. Tony didn't argue, his eyes finally filled with rare guilt. But the nightmares persisted, headlights blinding me, the silhouette in the dark, that voice calmly inviting me inside. Now, months later, every dark road I drive and every isolated house I see reminds me of that night. The fear hasn't left me. Neither has the question. What would have happened had I gone inside? I rubbed my eyes, glancing wearily at the wall clock above the coffee machine. Midnight. The diner was empty, illuminated by the dull flicker of neon signs reflecting off rain-streaked windows. I was just about to lock up Joe's Diner when the bell above the door chimed softly, startling me awake. A tall, wiry man entered, hood pulled low, face shadowed. He shuffled nervously to the counter, his pale hands trembling slightly. Something about his posture, his quiet manner, felt off. "Closing soon," I called out, forcing politeness into my tired voice. He didn't respond, only placing a crumpled $20 bill and a handwritten address on the counter. "One burger, delivered here." "We don't normally," I started, but stopped myself. Joe's instructions had been clear. Take every order, even late-night ones. I sighed, picking up the paper. It read, 172 Old Mill Road. I knew the place, an abandoned farmhouse at the edge of Fairfield, a decaying ruin everyone avoided. Unease twisted in my stomach. "You sure about this?" I asked, glancing up. But the stranger was already gone, the bell above the door tinkling behind him. Reluctantly, I grabbed the burger from the grill and slipped into my car, the rain pounding harder as I drove out of town. Streetlights faded, replaced by oppressive darkness as Fairfield's empty countryside stretched around me, endless and suffocating. Old Mill Road was deserted, potholes jolting my car violently. Soon, the farmhouse loomed ahead, skeletal and sinister, in my headlights. My pulse quickened. Shadows crept along rotting wood siding, windows shattered into jagged glass teeth. The place seemed alive, breathing softly in the wind, waiting. Parking nervously, I stepped outside into the bitter chill. The farmhouse stood silent except for the faint creak of rusted hinges and the distant groan of old timber. Swallowing hard, I moved toward the porch, the wood beneath my shoes damp and soft. "Hello?" My voice trembled more than I liked. I knocked once, twice, each knock echoing into emptiness. Silence replied. Frustrated and anxious, I took out my phone and dialed the customer's number, expecting voicemail. Instead, a ringtone pierced the stillness from somewhere inside the farmhouse. My stomach clenched painfully. "Hello?" I shouted again, louder this time, dread seeping into every breath. No reply. But then, barely audible, I heard movement. Slow footsteps creaking quietly above me. Instinct screamed inside me. "Leave. Now." I spun toward my car, ready to abandon everything, when something caught my eye. Fresh footprints, imprinted deep in the mud, leading around the farmhouse's side toward the back. A faint glow flickered briefly in an upper window, vanishing almost immediately. Someone was definitely inside, watching, waiting. Adrenaline surged through my veins, panic tightening around my throat. I tossed the food bag onto the porch steps, backing away carefully. That's when headlights ignited suddenly behind my car, blinding me. A vehicle, silent until now, had blocked my only exit. Panic exploded in my chest. From the vehicle emerged a towering figure, silhouetted ominously against glaring headlights. He moved calmly, deliberately, one hand tucked ominously beneath his coat. My legs froze, panic locking my body rigid. Two more figures melted silently from the shadows around the farmhouse, hooded faces concealed, circling me slowly. My breath caught sharply. This was no random prank. This was carefully planned. Pulse hammering in my ears, I finally forced myself to move, sprinting desperately toward my car. Footsteps chased after me, swift and relentless, their breathing close behind. Lunged into the driver's seat, slamming the door shut just as a hand grasped at the handle, scratching frantically at the glass. The engine roared to life. Gritting my teeth, I slammed into reverse, tires spinning wildly in mud and gravel, the car fishtailing violently. The figures scattered, disappearing into darkness, but the tall man stood motionless, watching patiently from the shadows. His hidden face seemed to follow me even as I sped away, heart hammering wildly. I barely remembered the frantic drive back into Fairfield, or parking shakily outside the diner. My body shook uncontrollably, adrenaline still coursing painfully through my limbs. I called the police with trembling fingers, voice cracking as I recounted the nightmare. The responding officers exchanged grim glances when I mentioned the farmhouse, promising to investigate immediately. Morning brought more unsettling news. The farmhouse had been abandoned for decades, But police found fresh evidence inside. Restraints bolted to walls, blood-stained floors, discarded tools. Signs pointed unmistakably to violence, torture, something dark and deeply twisted. Yet no trace of the strangers remained. When I confronted Joe the next day, he barely looked up from his newspaper. "Probably kids playing pranks," he muttered dismissively. Fury burned in my gut. He'd sent me blindly into danger and didn't even care. I quit immediately, leaving behind Joe's ignorance and neglect. But escaping memories was far harder. Weeks passed and life in Fairfield returned to its quiet, sleepy rhythm. But every night shadows loomed darker in my dreams. Silent figures watching, footsteps following me, endlessly. Isolation, fear, helplessness. They all remained, deeply etched in my bones. Sometimes, in the dead silence of my new apartment, I wake abruptly, heart racing, convinced those shadowed figures stand waiting just beyond my door. Because deep down, I know they're still out there, unseen and patient, hidden behind Fairfield's gentle facade, waiting quietly. And perhaps, someday soon, they'll come for me again. Lena and I had always loved camping. It was our escape from the monotony of work, the city, and everything in between. We had been to countless trails, set up camp in deep forests, beside lakes, even near old mining towns. We considered ourselves seasoned. We thought we'd seen it all. We were wrong. Hollow Creek Forest was supposed to be just another weekend getaway. We had read about Crescent Ridge Trail, a lesser-known but well-rated hiking route leading to a remote Ridgeview campsite. The pictures online showed a peaceful, open glade, flanked by towering pines. It seemed perfect. We left early Saturday morning, our truck packed with supplies, spirits high. The air smelled fresh and the autumn chill made the drive pleasant. It wasn't until we got deeper into the forest that I noticed something strange. An SUV was parked on the side of the road, partially hidden by the trees. The passenger door was slightly ajar, just enough to be noticeable. No one was inside. I slowed down, glancing at Lena. "Weird, right?" She nodded. "Maybe someone just forgot to close it." I pulled over, stepped out, and shut the door, wiping the rainwater off my hands. The inside of the car was a mess. Clothes, papers, even an old camping stove tossed across the back seat. Something about it unsettled me, but I shook it off. We had a trail to reach. The hike up Crescent Ridge was uneventful at first. The deeper we went, the quieter the forest became. The wind barely rustled the leaves, and we hadn't seen another hiker all morning. It was too still. When we reached the Ridgeview campsite, the first thing we noticed was the tent. It was a small single-person tent zipped up tight. No fire pit, no backpack, no sign of its owner. Just sitting there untouched. Lena frowned. "Where's the camper?" "Probably out hiking," I suggested, though something felt off. The sky darkened as rain began to fall. We hurriedly set up our tent at the far end of the clearing, putting some space between us and the silent, ownerless tent. Then we heard them. Two men walking out from between the trees. They didn't look like hikers. Their clothes were too clean. Their shoes spotless despite the muddy trail. Matthew and Owen, they introduced themselves. They spoke politely, but something in their demeanor felt rehearsed, unnatural, like they were mimicking human interaction rather than participating in it. "We've been camping here a few days," Matthew said, his voice too even, too casual. "But," Lena nudged me, her hand gripping my wrist. Their tent was far too small for two people. They should have been soaked, but they weren't. Their hair was completely dry, their faces clean despite the drizzle. Something about their smiles was wrong. We made small talk for a moment before they returned to their tent, moving in perfect sync. I turned to Lena. "Did that feel off to you?" She nodded, whispering, "I don't think they were ever inside that tent." Night fell. The rain kept coming. We ate quietly inside our tent, listening to the steady drumming against the fabric. Every so often I unzipped a corner of the tent to glance outside. The small tent in the clearing was open now. Empty. A shiver ran down my spine. I woke Lena. "They're not in their tent." She sat up, rubbing her eyes. "Where are they?" Before I could answer, we heard them, whispering. Just beyond the thin walls of our tent, voices murmured. At first I thought it was Matthew and Owen, but then a third voice joined in, low, wrong, garbled. My stomach dropped. There had only been 2 men. I reached for the pocket knife in my bag, my breath shallow. I slowly unzipped the tent and peeked outside. 3 figures stood at the edge of the trees, still, watching. I couldn't see their faces in the darkness, but I felt their gaze. One of them whistled. I don't remember grabbing Lena's arm. I just remember running. We bolted from the tent, our feet sinking into the wet earth. The whispering had stopped, replaced by something worse. Footsteps, heavy, deliberate, following us. The whistling continued, low and drawn out, like a hunter signaling to its prey. Lena was crying, her breaths ragged. I could barely think, barely process what was happening. Then through the trees I saw it, the SUV. We sprinted toward it, slipping on the wet ground. I yanked the driver's door open, shoving Lena inside. Then I froze. The passenger door was open again, the same way I had found it earlier. I glanced at the forest. The figures stood just beyond the tree line, waiting. I jumped into the driver's seat and slammed the locks down, fumbling with the keys. My fingers felt numb, my mind reeling. Something moved in the back seat, a low exhale. I turned. The back seat was empty, but the seatbelt was stretched out, as if something had just been sitting there. I lost it. I gunned the engine and tore out of. There, the truck's tires sliding on the slick ground. In the rearview mirror, I saw the figure step out of the trees. Not chasing, just watching. We found a gas station miles down the road and called the police. They met us there, took our statement, and sent a unit up to the campsite. 2 days later, an officer called us back. The SUV belonged to a man reported missing the week before. His belongings were still in the car, but his body was never found. The tent at the campsite was his. The footprints they found did not match just 2 men. And when I asked about the whistling, the officer hesitated. Then he said, "Other people have heard it too. I don't know what we saw that night. I don't know who or what Matthew and Owen were. And I don't know why I keep hearing that whistle in my dreams." I've spent most of my adult life traveling. My blog had taken me across cities, mountains, and forests, but there was something special about Whispering Pines Forest. Maybe it was its untouched wilderness, or maybe it was the way people talked about it, like a place you entered but never truly left. I had wrapped up an assignment early and had a full day to kill before my next flight. A quick search showed a secluded trail deep in the forest, with only a handful of mentions online. Perfect. It was already mid-afternoon when I arrived at the trailhead. The sun, pale and weak behind thick clouds, cast a washed-out glow over the towering pines. The place was unnervingly silent except for the occasional rustling leaves. No other hikers, no birds. Just me and my footsteps crunching against the damp earth. A mile in, I spotted something unexpected. A cabin, old, rotting. Its door was slightly open. I wasn't sure why, but I felt a deep, immediate unease. The kind of instinctual fear that creeps into your bones before your mind catches up. I took a step closer, peering inside. Nothing. Just an empty room, dust and decay clinging to the walls. Still, something felt wrong, like I was being watched from within the darkness. I backed away. A little over an hour later, I saw him. At first, just a shape among the trees, a man leaning against a fallen log. He sat still, head slightly tilted as if he'd been waiting for me. "Didn't think anyone else would be out here," he said, smiling. His teeth were too white. He introduced himself as Sam, claimed he was hiking the same trail but had been here before. He spoke like we already knew each other. Too familiar, too comfortable. "Where are you staying?" he asked. I hesitated. "Just exploring for the day. I said, keeping my voice neutral. His smile widened. "You sure about that?" I didn't answer. Instead, I muttered a quick goodbye and picked up my pace. 20 minutes later, I glanced over my shoulder. Sam was gone. Something felt off. My backpack felt lighter. I checked my supplies. My energy bars were missing. I knew I hadn't eaten them. My stomach was growling. Then I saw it. A tree trunk, carved with deep, jagged letters. "I see you, Alex." I froze. No one knew I was here. I spun around, heart pounding. The forest was still. The silence pressed down on me. I tried to shake it off. Maybe I had seen it wrong. Maybe someone had written it ages ago. Maybe. Then I saw another carving. "Don't go back." I turned and started walking. Fast. The sun was dipping below the trees. I should have been near the end of the trail by now, but I wasn't. The path was wrong. The trees looked the same no matter how far I walked. My footprints should have marked my way, but the ground behind me was undisturbed. Panic gnawed at my ribs. I was being led in circles. Then, ahead of me, he stood there. Sam smiling, blocking the trail. I grabbed the small pocket knife from my backpack. "How do you know my name?" I demanded. His smile didn't change. "I know a lot about you." He took a step forward. I took a step back. Then I ran. Branches whipped against my skin. I didn't care. I ran until my lungs burned. Somehow I found myself back at the cabin. I hadn't turned in this direction. I hadn't meant to come back. The door was wide open now. Inside, a single chair faced the doorway. A piece of paper sat on it. My hands shook as I picked it up. It was a printed page from my blog, the last post, dated yesterday. I hadn't uploaded anything in over a week, then scrawled in black ink across the page, "I'm glad you came back." The sound of footsteps behind me. I turned, slashing blindly with my knife. A struggle, a grunt, a flash of Sam's two white teeth, then silence. He wasn't there anymore. The night was long. I barricaded the door with broken furniture. Every creak, every whisper of wind against the walls made my skin crawl. I checked my phone. No service. The battery icon flickered red. I fought sleep, but exhaustion won. And then, at some point in the night, a soft knock on the door. 3 times. Then a voice, my own voice. "Alex, open the door." I pressed my back against the wall. Knife gripped so tight my fingers ached. The knock came again. Then silence. I didn't sleep after that. The sun rose, and with it, the sound of voices. Distant, but real. Rescue. I stumbled out of the cabin, half mad, with relief. 2 park rangers approached. I tried to tell them about Sam, the carvings, the stolen food. Then one of them asked, "Who's Sam?" They hadn't seen anyone else. No footprints but mine. No other campsites. And inside the cabin, the chair was gone. The note was gone. My own blog post? Never existed. The last thing, the year. Ranger said before leading me out. "You're lucky we found you. We don't let people hike here anymore." I asked why. He hesitated, then said, "Because no one ever hikes alone in Whispering Pines. But sometimes they think they do." The whistling wind carried a whisper. I turned. Between the trees, Sam was standing there, smiling, and then he disappeared. Camping alone wasn't new to me. I had done it plenty of times before, and I loved the peace of it. No noise, no distractions, just me and the wilderness. That's why I had chosen Shadowmoor Woods for the weekend. It was off the beaten path, rarely visited, and exactly the kind of place I needed to clear my head. I had been dealing with too much stress. Work, relationships, life in general. Getting away from everything felt like the best option. I had packed light, a tent, some food, water, a flashlight, a knife, and my old notebook. I liked to jot things down when I was alone. It helped organize my thoughts. The hike-in was longer than I expected. The trail wound through thick trees, and the deeper I went, the quieter everything became. By the time I reached a small clearing near a creek, the sun was already dipping low. The spot was perfect, secluded, shaded, and had just enough space to set up camp. But something about the place felt off. It wasn't anything obvious. The air just felt too still. The trees didn't sway as much as they should have with the breeze, and I hadn't seen or heard a single animal since stepping off the main trail. No birds, no insects, nothing. I ignored it. I told myself it was just my mind adjusting to the quiet. I set up my tent, started a small fire, and made a quick meal. By the time I finished eating, the sky had gone dark. I sat by the fire, listening to the crackling flames. That's when I first noticed it, the sound of movement. Not far, maybe 20 feet away. It was slow, deliberate, like footsteps. I turned my flashlight toward the trees. Nothing. I listened for another minute, but the sound was gone. Probably an animal, maybe a deer. I went inside my tent, zipped it up, and lay down. At some point, I must have drifted off. I woke up suddenly. I didn't know why at first. Then I heard it, a whisper. It was so faint I thought I had imagined it, but then it came again. I couldn't make out words, just the shape of them. A voice right outside my tent. I held my breath. I listened. Nothing. I slowly reached for my flashlight and flicked it on. Then I unzipped the tent, just enough to peek out. The fire had died down to embers. The woods were still. I scanned the trees, searching for movement, but everything was just as I had left it. And yet something felt different. I stepped out, my boots crunching against the dirt. I walked a slow circle around the campsite, shining, my light between the trees. Still nothing. Maybe I had been dreaming. Maybe the wind had carried some distant sound that my half-asleep mind turned into whispers. I went back inside the tent, but I did not sleep. Morning came with no more disturbances, but I still felt uneasy. I made coffee, sat by the creek, and tried to shake the feeling. Then I noticed something. My notebook. It was open. I knew for a fact that I had closed it before going to sleep. But there it was. Pages fluttering slightly in the breeze. And there was writing on the page. A single word, scrawled in shaky letters. Stay. I felt my stomach drop. I hadn't written that. My first thought was that someone had been in my tent, that they had crept into my campsite while I slept, flipped through my notebook, and left me a message. I scanned the area, looking for footprints, disturbed dirt, anything. But the ground looked the same. Maybe I had written it down absent-mindedly the night before. Maybe I had forgotten. Or maybe I was trying to make sense of something that didn't make sense. I needed to clear my head. I packed a small bag, grabbed my map, and set off down one of the side trails, hoping that a few hours of hiking would shake the feeling. The farther I walked, the worse it got. I kept seeing movement from the corner of my eye, small, quick shifts between the trees. But every time I turned, nothing was there. Then I saw the carvings. At first, it was just one, a strange spiral symbol etched into the bark of a tree. Then I saw another, and another. Symbols scratched into tree trunks, rocks, even the dirt. Some looked old, like they had been there for years. Others were fresh, and then I found one with my name, Jordan. The letters were deep, jagged, carved recently. My body went cold. This was wrong. Someone was following me, watching me. I turned and walked quickly back to camp. The moment I stepped into my clearing, I stopped. Something was wrong. My tent was open. I hadn't left it that way. Rushed forward, heart pounding. Inside, my backpack was gone, but sitting where I had been sleeping was something else. A leather-bound journal. It wasn't mine. My hands shook as I picked it up. The pages were filled with entries, some faded, some fresh. Different handwriting, different people. One entry caught my eye. August 4th, 1987. The whispers don't stop. They get closer at night. I tried to leave. They won't let me. Another, dated 3 years later. June 12, 1990. The woods change when you aren't looking. Trails don't lead where they should. Don't trust what you see. 3. October 3rd, 2023. If you find this, it means they let me go. But they won't let you. My hands went numb. That date, 2 days ago. That's when I heard the whisper. Right behind me. I ran. I ran faster than I had ever run in my life. The woods blurred past me. The symbols flashed in my vision, burned into every tree I passed. The forest did not look the same anymore. The paths did not lead where they should. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. Then up ahead, I saw someone standing between the trees, still, watching. At first, I thought it was a person. Then I saw the face. It was my own, and then everything went dark. I woke up on the roadside. A passing driver had spotted me stumbling out of the woods, covered in dirt and scratches, looking like I had been lost for days. But I hadn't. Had I? I tried to tell people what happened. The whispers, the carvings, the journal. But when I checked my pack, it wasn't there. When I checked the map, Shadowmoor Woods wasn't listed anymore. No one believed me. But I know the truth. I left the woods, but they did not forget me. I never used to get scared easily. I mean, sure, working late nights as a DoorDash driver meant dealing with the occasional sketchy neighborhood or weird customer, but nothing I couldn't handle. Most nights, I'd just pick up an order, drop it off, and be on my way. No drama. Until last night. I was about to call it quits when a new order popped up on my screen. A cash delivery. I hated taking cash orders. They were risky and usually meant dealing with someone who didn't trust the app. But it was a $40 payout for a 15-minute drive. Too good to pass up. I tapped accept. The address wasn't in a residential area. No houses, no apartment complexes, just a pin on the map leading to the outskirts of town. That should have been my first red flag, but I was too tired to overthink it. I pulled onto a long, empty road, my headlights cutting through the darkness. My GPS announced, "You have arrived at your destination." I frowned. Where? The only thing in sight was an abandoned auto repair shop. The building was run down, rusted, and looked like it hadn't been used in decades. A single flickering light illuminated the entrance, casting long, jagged shadows across the cracked pavement. I double-checked the address. It matched. There was no house, no apartment, just this empty garage. My stomach tightened. Then, out of the shadows, a man stepped forward. He was thin, wiry, wearing grimy mechanic overalls, and had grease-streaked hands gripping a wrench. His smile felt forced, like he had practiced it in a mirror. "You the DoorDash guy?" he asked. His voice was too calm, too prepared. I forced a nod, holding up the bag. "Yeah, got your order." His smile didn't drop. "Cool, man. My buddy's got the cash inside. Won't take a sec." He turned and gestured toward the garage's open bay door. Something inside me screamed no. I suddenly hated how quiet it was here. No passing cars, no streetlights, just the soft hum of insects in the tall grass. I took a step back. "I'd prefer if you just paid me out here." The man's smile didn't falter, but his eyes flicked to something behind me. I whipped around. Nothing. But when I turned back, the garage door was rolling down. He was sealing me in. I lunged for my car, but before I could grab the door handle, I heard gravel crunching behind me. I froze. There was someone else. I turned my head, my pulse hammering. A second man stood 15 feet away, just at the edge of the light's glow. He didn't move, didn't speak, just watched. My throat tightened. The first man, Marcus, I think, was still smiling, but it had changed. Less friendly, more entertained. "You might as well come inside," he said. My body screamed run. I had two choices, run or play along. Running meant I'd have to get past the second guy, and I wasn't sure if he had a weapon. Playing along gave me more time. So I stepped inside. The smell hit me first. Oil, metal, something else. A dim yellow light buzzed overhead, flickering. The walls were lined with rusted tools and car parts, but my eyes were drawn to the center of the room, a large shape covered with a stained tarp. The air felt thick. Marcus walked past me, reaching for something on a nearby table. I took a slow step back. Then, from the darkness behind the tarp, I heard it. A metal chain, dragging. I spun toward the exit. A truck rumbled in the distance. I ran for my car. Marcus moved fast. Too fast. Something slammed into my shoulder. A wrench? A fist? I wasn't sure. I hit the ground, my phone skidding across the pavement. The second man was still standing at the edge of the light, watching, smiling. I scrambled to my feet, my heart pounding like a jackhammer. The truck stopped abruptly, its headlights flooding the garage entrance. I could barely make out the silhouette of a third man, taller, broader, holding something long in his hands. A crowbar. I dove into my car, slamming the door and fumbling with the keys. Marcus was grinning, his hands twitching at his sides. The second man took a slow step forward. I turned the key. The engine sputtered. No, 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 no. Come on. The truck's driver's side door creaked open. My engine roared to life. I threw it into reverse, my tires screeching against the gravel. Marcus and the second man lunged at my car, but I was already peeling backward. The third man didn't move. He just stood by the truck, watching me with dead, patient eyes. I slammed the car into drive and floored it down the road. I didn't stop driving, not for 10 miles, not until I reached a gas station with bright lights and security cameras. I grabbed my phone, hands shaking, no missed calls, no texts, just one notification on my screen. DoorDash order canceled. I debated calling 911, but what would I say? That some guys at an old garage freaked me out? That I thought they were planning something? I had no proof. I tapped Google Maps, retraced my route. My blood turned to ice. There was no auto repair shop at that location, just an empty lot. I turned off my phone, and I never took another cash order again. I never minded the overnight shifts at Carter's Gas and Convenience. It was quiet, easy money, and most of the time I just listened to music and scrolled on my phone between the occasional customer. But that night was different. That night, I learned what it feels like to be hunted. It wasn't even supposed to be my shift. I'd covered for Tony, who'd called in sick last minute. That left me alone in a tiny roadside gas station, the only place for miles along Highway 41. Outside, the darkness stretched endlessly, broken only by the fluorescent glow of the gas station canopy. Beyond that, nothing but empty road and dense tree lines. I kept an eye on the security cameras, though. The front, the gas pumps, the back alley near the dumpsters. Everything looked clear. For now, the first sound wasn't a knock. It was a bang, a deep, deliberate pounding on the front doors. I glanced up from my phone, expecting a drunk traveler or some trucker needing to use the bathroom. Instead, I saw him. Tall, thin, motionless. A man stood outside, pressed against the glass. His hands at his sides, his head slightly tilted. He wasn't knocking anymore, he was just watching. I tapped the intercom. We're closed inside, but the pumps are open. No response. He just tilted his head further, as if he were studying me. Something about his face felt off, like his features weren't quite aligned right, like they didn't match the shape of his skull. I swallowed hard. "Sir, do you need help?" Nothing. And then, without a word, he stepped backward, slowly, until the darkness swallowed him completely. Watched the security feed for 5 full minutes. Nothing. No car, no movement. Just the empty pumps and the dull hum of the neon sign flickering overhead. Maybe he was a drifter. Maybe he was just messing with me. I exhaled, shaking off the unease, and stepped out from behind the counter to check the front windows. The lot was empty. The highway stretched on forever, a dead, silent void. I turned back toward the counter. Bang. I nearly jumped out of my skin. The back door. Someone was at the back door. My stomach dropped. I checked the security monitor, but the camera feed was frozen. Just static. No. No. I grabbed the baseball bat we kept behind the register and moved toward the back hallway. The storage area was dimly lit, the buzzing overhead light flickering erratically. The metal door rattled. Someone was trying to get in. I swallowed. "We're closed," I shouted, trying to keep my voice steady. Silence. Then, from inside the store, a sound, a soft shuffle, a footstep, but the back door never opened, which meant whoever was in here was already inside. I froze, gripping the bat tighter. A shadow moved past the snack aisle. Slow, unrushed. I backed toward the counter, trying to keep my breathing quiet. The cameras were still down. The power flickered. Then, from just behind me, a voice, low, steady. "You shouldn't have stayed." I spun. Nothing. Just empty aisles and the faint buzz of the fluorescent lights. I moved, heart hammering, toward the employee exit. The metallic scent of rust filled my nose. I reached for the handle and stopped cold. It was already unlocked. From the outside, I whipped around, expecting him to be right there, but the store was still empty. I edged toward the front doors, scanning every shadow, every shelf. Then I heard it, a slow metallic dragging sound coming from the back of the store. I clenched the bat. "I'm calling the cops," I lied, my voice cracking. The dragging stopped. For a second, the silence was suffocating. Then, a figure emerged from behind the aisles. Tall, thin, face still tilted slightly, but now he was closer. Too close. I didn't hesitate. I ran. I yanked the front door open and sprinted into the night. Didn't stop. Didn't look back. I didn't think. I just ran. The gas station's neon flickered behind me, the light cutting off just as I hit the edge of the highway. For a moment, the road stretched empty in both directions. No cars, no headlights, nothing. Then, from behind me, a whisper. "Don't worry, there's always tomorrow." I don't know how long I ran. By the time I made it to a nearby truck stop, I was shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone to call 911. When the cops arrived, we went back to the gas station together. The power was back. The security cameras were working again, but the footage, it showed me panicking, running out of the store. But the man? There was no man on the tape. Nothing at the front door, nothing at the back, nothing in the aisles. But I know what I saw, and I know what I heard. I quit the next day. I don't drive past that gas station anymore. But sometimes, on nights when I can't sleep, I wonder, if I'd waited just a few more seconds, what would have happened if I hadn't run? Would I have ever left at all? I've worked a lot of temporary jobs across the country, but this one stuck with me. It wasn't the job itself. I'd worked night shifts before. It wasn't even the gas station tucked away on an empty back road far from major highways. It was the man who came in that night, the one who never should have found me. The shift had been quiet. No cars, no customers, just me, some stale coffee, and the occasional creak of the old gas station's refrigeration units. The road outside stretched into darkness, swallowed by thick forest on both sides. This wasn't a truck stop or a travel hub. This was the kind of place locals used to cut across state lines unseen. Then the headlights appeared. A black sedan pulled in, stopping dead center in front of the gas station. The driver's door opened, and a man stepped out. Tall, thin, movements too smooth. He smiled at me through the glass doors before walking inside. I kept my eyes on him as he strolled down the aisles, picking up random items, then putting them back. And he was whistling. Not a normal tune, something off-key, deliberate, like he wanted me to notice. I stood behind the counter, waiting for him to bring something up. But after a few minutes, he just turned and walked out. No purchase, no words. I watched as he climbed back into his car. The headlights stayed on. He didn't leave. He just sat there. I told myself I wasn't going to stare out the window, but my hands wouldn't stop fidgeting. I kept checking the security monitor's grainy black and white footage of an empty gas station lot. Then the headlights shut off. I froze. A few seconds later, the driver's door opened. Same man, same slow, deliberate movements. This time he parked, further away near the edge of the lot, just outside the main lights. I swallowed hard as he walked inside. "Slow night?" he asked, his voice too casual. I nodded. "Yeah. You need something?" He smiled. Too wide. Too long. "Actually, yeah," he said. "My front tire looks low. You got an air pump?" I hesitated. The gas station didn't have a self-service pump, but we did keep a small portable compressor behind the counter for emergencies. I glanced at the clock, 1:13 a.m. I didn't want to go outside, but I also didn't want to say no. I grabbed the air compressor and stepped outside with him. The night air was colder than before, the silence even heavier. His car was still running. I knelt beside the tire, plugging in the compressor hose. That's when I noticed it. His hand was deep inside, his jacket pocket not moving, not adjusting, just resting there. I glanced up. He was staring at me, expressionless. Something about the way he was standing, his posture, his breathing, was wrong. It was like he was waiting for something. The air compressor beeped, signaling. The pressure was fine. I unplugged the hose and stood up fast. He didn't step aside. He stayed between me and the door. "Everything good?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. No response. Just silence. My stomach twisted. This is it. Then something changed, a flicker of hesitation in his eyes, and then he smiled, a slow, knowing smile, like I had passed some kind of test. Without a word, he stepped aside, walked back to his car, and drove away, but not far. He pulled to the edge of the lot and just sat there, watching. I locked the doors, grabbed my phone, and dialed 911. A dispatcher picked up. I gave them a brief description of the man and his car. Before I could finish, the officer cut me off. "Can you repeat the make and model?" I did. Silence. Then, "Stay inside. Lock the doors. We have units in the area." I hung up. My hands were shaking. Outside, the black sedan's headlights flickered and then vanished down the road. The cops showed up within minutes. They asked if I had security footage. I pulled up the tapes, my stomach still in knots. We rewound to 12:45 a.m. The black sedan pulled in. The man got out. He walked into the store, browsed the aisles. Then, something wasn't right. The footage froze. No, not froze. Jumped. Skipped 4 minutes ahead. Like part of the recording was missing. The officer frowned. "You didn't touch the system?" I shook my head. Then we fast-forwarded to his second visit. This time, the footage didn't show him coming inside. It just jumped to me standing by the tire, kneeling. The moment his hand was in his jacket, like something or someone had altered the footage. The officers exchanged glances. One of them grabbed his radio. They never told me what he'd done, just that they were already looking for him before I called. I tried searching for local crime reports, missing persons, anything, but I found nothing. No record of his car, no recent crimes in the area, just a dead end. I left town the next day, but before I did, I checked my truck camper. The locks were fine. Nothing was stolen. But under the driver's seat, my spare keys were missing. Some people aren't looking to rob you. They're looking for something else, and sometimes they find it.